The campaign for Spain's second general election of 2019 and fourth in 4 years begins later today. It follows acting Prime Minister and Socialist Party leader Pedro Sanchez's failure to put together a workable coalition following April's votes. Well, I'm joined by my journalist, Manu Torredillos, from our Spanish service. Manu, morning to you. Just remind us what happened. Let's go back a little bit to the general election in April and then the failure to form a coalition that was workable.
Buenos dias, good morning. Well, what we saw in April was another example of the fragmentation we've seen in Spain in the last years in the political spectrum and the lack of attitude of the politicians and the leaders to deal with it, to negotiate. So we saw Pedro Sánchez winning the elections, far away from absolute majority, so he needed to negotiate. All the right-wing parties literally blocked it. They said they didn't want to negotiate anything, so he had to turn to the left, to Podemos, far left, more or less, to try to reach an agreement. There was a first try in July, where we see these 2 votes of investiture in the parliament. They didn't reach an agreement, so there was another impasse, and then they tried to negotiate again, but this second time, which was in September, there was no even a candidate, because after talking among them, all the parties, Pedro Sánchez, who was the person supposed to be against the candidate, so that he won't be able to reach the support he needs in the parliament to be named president of the government in Spain, the equivalent to prime minister. So he didn't even try it, and that took us to where we are today, to the 4th election in 4 years. It's 186 days where we have this label of caretaking with government in Spain.
It's a very short time, 186 days, to then have another general election. The stroke of midnight tonight, that's when campaigning starts. But the election's only actually in about a week and a half. It's a very short period to get that campaigning done. Yeah,
we had a reform actually from the elections that came in 2015 and 16, when we have this repetition of the elections. So we had this reform to try to save some money. So, for example, the campaign time was halved. So we have 8 days this time. It starts officially at midnight, although we have some events of pre-campaign and we'll have big rallies this evening. And there were other measures like less public funds for the parties, less free time on air, advertising on TV, for example. And they also wanted to facilitate the vote for the expats. So people like me who live abroad, we don't have to ask officially for the vote again, as we did it in April. So we will have the documents sent to our homes instead of going again through this thing, which is sending an envelope to ask for the documents, so they send it to you. So they did it to try to save some money. Nevertheless, we've seen in the Spanish desk that the price for this election is going to be about 175 million. So obviously, it's still quite high.
Of course, one issue that is going to be so central to this election is that issue of Catalonia, and we've seen that days and days of often violent protests in the region. How might this election be sold on that issue?
Well, basically, it's the only one. We can see how Catalonia has phagocyzed all the political debate since we had a verdict a couple of weeks ago, with the protest, with the riots. So parties have been very careful about what they say about it or what they don't say. The right trying to show hard positions, the left trying to be a little bit more open, but trying not to be so open. And it's going to be key. It's going to be key with the fatigue of the voters that are basically the 2 main issues for these elections. It's going to be so important that, for example, we're going to see Vox, the extreme right party. They're going to open their campaign there to send a statement, probably not to all the voters in Catalonia, they are not going to get a lot there, but to the rest of the country, saying and showing that Catalonia is going to be the war horse they're going to ride in these elections. And also we've seen how Pedro Sánchez was yesterday there, and they plan also to close the campaign in Catalonia, showing that it's going to be the main issue in these elections.
Manu Torredillos from our Spanish service, thank you for talking to us.
Always welcome.